Bum 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 ba 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 boom.
That's pretty cool. I like that. You got some
How you doing?
tight lyrics there, Paul. I like that.
I try to
I'm
keep
all
them
right,
tight all
man.
the time. You alright?
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm good. 0 at the moment. I'm going to keep giving you numbers. You know what those numbers mean.
Another
0.
late night special
Late night
for
special.
TTLG.
We've been talking, right? Are we going to turn this late night special into regular late night specials? They'll no longer be special, will it? If we just do it late night all the time.
It'll always be special because people get to tune in and see two great minds conversing over the strangest things in the world. And tonight's topic and thought is no different.
It is no different. I do think we should do. I know we shouldn't just make up. Well, Paul's always having a pop saying, "Why did you just make up like episodes we're going to do on the fly?" He's always saying, "You got to stop doing that. Talk to me about it first, man." And he's absolutely right. I should do that. But I do think we should do an episode about our favourite TV soon because we were just talking off camera, off air about The Boys. And I'm quite excited to watch that when this is finished. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to watch that. I've been watching The Acolyte. Been watching House of the Dragon. There's some cool shows on at the moment. Actually, there's a lot on. Normally, I'll go through months and months and months when I don't really want to watch anything. There's nothing to watch. But there's some cool shows. Like almost every night of the week, there's something cool coming on.
So I'm pretty chuffed about stuff coming out again rather than like just mediocre run of the mill. Yeah.
And the Rings of Power is pretty soon as well, right? That's the end of August or something.
Yeah, they are the Rings of Power. I don't know how powerful they are. It's been a few years since the first series came out, so
yeah, I enjoyed that. I like that actually. So yeah. We do need to do our favourite TV because Paul's a bit of a TV buff, right? Watches a lot of good shows. He's pretty much into it. So I reckon we could tap into your TV knowledge here a bit. This would be good fun. I think this would be fun. We could talk about it.
I'm writing it down.
Perhaps won't be New Rock Stars with Eric Voss. I love Eric Voss. New Rock Stars. If you don't watch that on YouTube, you should. It's a great channel, New Rock Stars. Maybe we'll get to that. Screen Crush is another good one. I like that. Screen Crush is a good one. That's the guy with the dog. The dog talks to him when he's talking about TV shows.
Is that a lot of indie stuff or something? It sounds like.
No, man.
You know the weird and wonderful stuff. I'm more like the Gold Star stuff that comes out of Prime and Netflix.
No. So I'm talking about these are YouTube channels that dissect different TV shows, show the Easter eggs, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, New Rock Stars and Screen Crush, recommend them. They're absolutely brilliant. Good channels on YouTube for sure. But anyway, we're not going to do that tonight. We're going to do something else, aren't we?
We are, and one of the greatest things I found about my mind when I was young, I always thought it was a bit of a curse, but now it seems to be one of the greatest things ever. That I just keep thinking.
ADHD? Is it?
I don't know. It could be undiagnosed mental disorder. You just think of these things. Things come to you. You're standing in front of your cupboards, just about to get some food, sitting on the toilet.
What was the food? Which one was this?
Generally, when these epiphanies come to you, and this one was pretty poignant actually because I was watching Farage, and we're not going to get too political because we did that in the previous podcast, but I was watching him talk, and I'm like, I sort of agree with what he's saying. I'm like, crap, am I racist? And the reason I say that is potentially because of the way people think about him, or the way he's perceived to be a racist person, is Brexit, is UKIP, all the things he's done. Potentially the wrong sort of people have tagged onto him, or he's got an underlying current of it. But if you look at Reform as the latest one and what he said, he's been painted as that sort of racist pie. He just wants to kick everyone out that's not of the Aryan Brotherhood race. Probably not exactly what they're saying, but that's just my little slant on it.
So in between the lines of the manifesto.
Yeah. But if you read his manifesto and you listen to him, you're like, oh, what he's saying is actually good. What he's saying I agree with. And I'm not going to go into all of it. I'll just give you a few of the highlights. So freeze non-essential immigration. Yeah, that makes sense. It's not racist. It's non-essential. We're an island. We shouldn't have everyone in. Stop the boats. Probably been trying to do that for the last few hundred years. Still trying to do it. It seems quite sensible. We're just trying to defend our borders. Just the last one, secure detention for all illegal immigrants. Or illegal migrants, sorry. Yeah, that's pretty cool. If you're coming in illegally, We can't take everyone. We haven't got the space for it. If you're not going through the proper channels, really, we should detain you properly and spin you around and kick you back out.
Sounds like you had a bit of a crisis, man, the other day. Like, are you
was.
genuinely asking yourself, shit, am I a racist now?
And
Like,
maybe it's because, have I got a soul? And, you know, I've been through all the Buffy series, and depends on how far you want to go back when we do our TV podcast.
Yeah.
One of the greatest shows
I'm interested
ever.
in how you link Buffy the Vampire Slayer with Nigel Farage.
Because
it's going to be interesting, man.
Because Angel, one of the biggest curses Angel had, was if he fell in love.
Yeah.
I think he lost his soul.
Did he?
Yes. And it became, I don't think that was it. I'm going to use it for this one anyway, and people can correct me in the comments if I'm completely wrong.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. I question myself. I'm like, oh, am I racist? And then you come out with the usual stuff as, well, no, because I've got mates that have got different coloured skin and from different parts of the world. I'm like, well, obviously I'm not racist. There you go.
Yeah.
Stamped it. Boom. But you just think, I just question myself. I'm like, and it's good. You're like, am I? Aren't I? But probably not. But it's the topic for today. Because
that's the question, then.
Because
am I
racist? Reform. No, because I agree with reform.
Yeah.
Am I racist?
So I know you, man. I mean, we can end the podcast now. I mean, I can say this straight away. You're not racist, right? Yeah, I know you. You're not racist at all. And I think there needs to be a little bit of sensible definitions around racism for me, because racism for me is discriminating against someone because of the color of their skin, because of where they come from, creed, whatever the right thing is to say. Now that's racism, right? And I've never seen you do that. I've never seen you in any way, shape, or form do anything that is remotely racist, like ever. So you're not. In my book, you're not a racist.
Cool.
And I think actually, well, yeah, job done. And
done.
Tune in next week, guys. Tune in to Zero.
That's it. Wrap it up.
Yeah, wrap it up. You are not a racist. And I think, to be honest as well, I think the very fact that you're asking yourself that question speaks volumes anyway about how you feel and how you think. So that's a good thing. So what we're trying to say, and I don't want to be too lovey-dovey because I prefer when we take the piss out of each other, actually, but don't beat yourself up because I think there's a distinction to be made, really. And I think...
But then where's the line? And I think we'll get on to this. Where's the line between... Obviously, I mean, we're going to use the archetypal main guy who was racist, I'd say, was Hitler. Pretty racist. Although, not totally. For another podcast, because he did accept people of different cultures and coloured skins. So he wasn't totally racist, but he definitely didn't like the Jews.
No, he wasn't massively keen, was he, on Jews, from what I gather.
You look at the KKK, yeah, racist. Racist people, they don't want people with a certain coloured skin. But then when you look at it and go, well, actually, we don't want illegal immigrants in here. Potentially they're coming from one part of the world, one race as it could be perceived.
So,
racism.
Okay. Well, no, see, I don't think it is. Right, and here's why I don't think it is.
Just because you've got a good heart and a cheeky smile.
No, right, because I don't think this is a binary thing. Well, let's just settle or sort of focus on the point around immigration for a minute, right? And I don't think it's a binary thing between unfettered, unchecked, undocumented, lawless immigration versus throw everyone out, stop the boats, England is white only, all of that stuff. There's a massive world of nuance that exists within that. And I firmly believe that immigration is a good thing. It's good. Like, it is a good thing. But it cannot be uncontrolled. And it's entirely sensible and logical to talk about ways that you need to control it, you need to vet it, and you need to make sure that immigration rates are proportionate to what your infrastructure can handle, right? So I'm talking everything: doctors, nurses, hospitals, teachers, schools, electricity grid, amount of houses that we've got. You know, these are finite numbers, right? There are finite numbers that exist against these things. So you can't have just unfettered immigration coming in, like just constant. Equally, you can't, I don't think, have an immigration policy that jeopardizes the security of your citizens. Like, that's not right at all. And that's, I think, if a government did that, they would be failing in their duties to protect the citizens and do the right thing for citizens. Again, there's a big difference, I think, between that and chuck everyone out, white only, all of that sort of stuff. So immigration is really good, but it's got to be controlled, right?
But moving away from me trying to ask myself, am I racist? If you look at the immigration we do get coming in, when you take those cultures in, and when the cultures become part of England, and that's fine. But when do we start losing what we are as a country, what we were, or what we think we are? How far do you bend and become something else before you're not the thing you were originally? I'm talking about the fact that we accept all different religions. We were you're going to go through a bit of a potted overview of the history, but it was Catholic, wasn't it? Back in the day before we tried. No, what was it when they didn't like the priests?
You're talking about the Reformation.
It's
Henry VIII sort of time. So we were Catholic, Roman Catholic, and then basically Henry VIII wanted to divorce his wife, and the Pope said no, and he's like, well, fuck you, I'm just going to create my own church then. And then the dissolution of the monasteries occurred at that time. So we were Catholic, and then that gave rise to the Church of England at that point. Quite simply, we have a church that is built upon the family values of Henry VIII. Quite simply,
to be honest, if you go back before then, we didn't even have a religion, did we?
Well, we did. We've always had a religion, always, even right back. Right,
we believe in many gods.
Exactly, paganistic.
Paganism.
Yeah. Well, yes and no, and we're going to talk about this in a minute because of something that occurred to me. It was only yesterday, something that I saw yesterday, and a conversation that I had with someone on X yesterday that prompted me to think, right, we need to look at this seriously because this person.
Well, we'll get onto that then. But my point was basically, when does our country and our culture change so far where we're adopting so much that we don't become the country we were?
I mean, is that not inevitable? Anyway, change is inevitable, right?
It is. Is this a period of change that's just a normal transition from how it was when you had the Brits here and then the Vikings decided to come over and try to take us out, and the Romans that came over and tried to take us out? Now it's not violent, but then people aren't trying to take us over, but we're just slowly molding into something new. Wow. It's a transformation. What a chrysalis, isn't it? We make our way as a butterfly.
Like evolution, right, occurs over hundreds of thousands of years, right? I think change to society, to culture happens over hundreds of years. And every single civilization ever has said, oh, things are getting worse. It's not as good as it used to be. You don't make them like they used to. In the good old days. Every single civilization ever has said that.
But then the Aztecs were right, weren't they?
Yeah, maybe.
Because the Spaniards came over, they're like, we don't like these Spaniards. Maybe. You know what? It killed them all.
Maybe every civilization is right. Maybe it always was better before. Maybe we're only ever making things worse. That's entirely possible. But I don't think and back to the original question is, what happens when you morph away from something, what you originally were? There's a problem within that question. There's a problem there, which is define what we were originally. What does that mean? What were we originally? When was original? That's the point, isn't it? That's the whole point around it.
True.
As we're going to talk about soon, immigration is a constant throughout human history. We're a migratory species. We have always migrated. Always.
We migrate to other countries.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny though, isn't it? Isn't it funny? Just a real subtle. Well, actually, what we're talking about, it's not even subtle, but there's a real odd thing about the use of language there. You know, if people move here, they're immigrants or migrants. Yeah. We move somewhere else, we're an expat. You know, you say, what's that about? You know, what's the difference? You know, to be honest with you,
do they call us expat? Do they call them expats over there?
No, we call ourselves expats when we're over there. So maybe it's just, isn't that just funny? Just the real ridiculous nuance of the language that's in
language
use
is important though.
Language is everything, man. Everything.
Language is the message. Language is what people hear and learn about, and like, okay, they're expats. Mustn't be that bad actually. They're quite nice people. They're not immigrants.
Yeah. So back to your original point. I don't think there's anything wrong with having sensible conversations, sensible debates around immigration. For crying out loud, that's part of government business, right? That's absolutely what we should be doing. Again, because we have a finite amount of resources, a finite infrastructure, a finite this and that and whatever. And it's a bit like, and we spoke about this metaphor the other day, right? It's a bit like having a glass of water, right?
Yeah.
And pouring in water. It doesn't matter that all the water that you're pouring in there is good water, it's pure water, it's the water that you want to drink. It doesn't matter. If you keep pouring it in, it's going to overflow because there's a finite amount of space within that glass. It doesn't matter how good the water is. It doesn't matter how good or bad people are in that particular issue, that particular subject here within the topic of actually what is the right amount of people to flow through the immigration system so we don't overburden the NHS, the emergency services, the electric bit. Well, do you see what I mean? But then you've got a real funny thing there, haven't you? Because you're like, well, whether people, and this is where I think a lot of people that are a lot cleverer than I. You're like, well, actually, what we need to do is have a policy, a campaign where we are recruiting nurses and doctors from abroad because we need to strengthen the NHS. Let's do that. And we have done that. I saw a post, really interesting post in the NHS the other day that they were celebrating because they had done some survey within the organisation, but they had 200 nationalities. They'd hit 200 nationalities working in the NHS. That's fucking amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Imagine what the NHS would be if they only had English or British. You know, it would be on its knees, wouldn't it? It'd be absolutely on its knees. Isn't that funny? Well, yeah, I think it would. I do. I think it would, especially with doctors and nurses.
Why do they have to go abroad for it? Why is it because it's too hard? Is it because within the schooling system, it's not shown as an actual vocation that someone could go into because they just think, oh, you're a nurse, can't do that? Is it actually, are people sort of exposed to it enough to know that it's a career path?
Great questions. I don't know the answer to them. Probably because it's super undervalued and
it's
underpaid.
Weird that they go, we need people to come from abroad to look after the sick and elderly, or people that are poorly or have got injuries. Yeah. Well, do we not care?
But it's interesting though. Well, you think about. Sometimes you think, well, what's the quicker fix here? I could take 3 months recruiting people from, I don't know, France, parts of Africa, wherever, to come and work in the NHS. It's going to take me 3 years to train a nurse. 3 years, you've got to do a degree to be a registered nurse. Was it 5-7 years to be a doctor? Probably looking at a decade if you were in some sort of speciality, consultancy services or surgeon or something like that. A decade. And you come out of that with enormous amounts of debt from your student loans and the education that you've had. There's something wrong, isn't there, where actually the answer is recruit from abroad. You're quite right. There's something very wrong with that, and that's another topic of discussion for another day.
I think we keep that as another topic. I think we swing it back around to what we were saying.
And I think that is that I understand your thoughts and your feelings around this because of the stigma that's around reform and Farage because of his history and all of that sort of stuff. But I don't think one is necessarily racist if they have sensible approaches to immigration, and that's the point. I don't think that you would do it discriminatively, if that makes sense. So you wouldn't say, actually, if you're from Australia, you can come in. If you're from Canada, you can come in. You just so happen to have white skin, so you can come in. Actually, you guys from Nigeria, you can't come in. You would not do. That's not what you're thinking, right? Do you know what I mean? That's
not sort of shade scanner.
Well, it always reminds me of that thing, isn't it, from Family Guy, where they've got that sort of palette thing. It's like white but innocent, and the brother is guilty. It's just so bad.
They get away with too much.
They do. But the point is, I don't think you should beat yourself up. But
so you're saying before you move on there, if I was actually a mad scientist who was developing a strain of COVID potentially that was only taking out people that had a certain DNA type, which had certain markers, which identified them as a certain race, then that'd be racist because I'd be trying to eliminate.
That sounds quite racist. Yeah. I mean, you're halfway to a great point, though, to be honest with you, because maybe the better thing to do is develop that not along the race situation, but actually along what value do you offer to society? Are you a racist? You're an idiot? You're a gammon? All of that sort of stuff. You know, if we can take a test that does that, and then we can have some sort of, segregation in that way. Maybe there's an answer there. Maybe there's an answer.
That's segregation. What in other countries.
Well, we've got a different. we got a whole different thing, haven't we, around multiculturalism? Because there is a problem with that. Do we actually have a multicultural society, or have we just got a multi-segregated society into different cultures? That's a really interesting question.
I think it's segregated.
So do I.
People keep in their own little cliques, own little groups.
So do I.
The Jewish population, the Islamic population, or the Muslim population, that you'll naturally hang around with the people that you relate to and the people who understand you, understand your religion, understand your sort of ways of working, how you are. It's just who we are as a race.
Yeah, agree. Totally agree.
Let's move this on, though.
Let's move it on, because I want to tell you what I saw the other day, right? And this is, I've got to bring it up now just because I saw it on here. This is Zara Sultana. You ever heard of Zara Sultana?
Briefly. Yeah, briefly.
She is Labour MP for Coventry South. I don't know if she's one that's just won a seat quite recently. Can you check that out while we're talking? Has she literally become an MP, or has she been an MP for a while? I don't know, actually, on that one. But that'd be interesting to find out, actually. But anyway, Zara Sultana last night posted a picture on X. I'm going to see if I can bring it up for us while we're talking here. I don't think I have fixed my blurriness issue that's going on here. So, no, it's still a bit blurry. But there she is. There is Zara Sultana. Cool name, by the way. I like that name, Zara Sultana. That's a cool name.
Seems like a stage name. Like, if we look at last names, so last names are meant to be after, like, what you used to do with a job and all that sort of stuff. Sultanas is a fruit.
Yeah, don't know. Maybe it means something else in where she originates from. Don't know.
Part of the press, according to the Parliament, she is the Labour MP for Coventry, like I said, Coventry South, and has been an MP continually since 2012. 2019.
Oh, wow. Coventry South have always voted Labour. Well, there you go. Well, there's Zara Sultana. I've never really come across her before. Never had anything to do with her. There she is on your screen. But this is last night during the football. So for English people in Britain, you know what we're talking about. The Euro Championships are on, and England beat the Netherlands lody night. Anybody who's watching this overseas,
the Netherlands.
I forgot. I nearly said Switzerland. No, I nearly said Switzerland.
Ollie Watkins scored in the last few minutes. Literally last couple of minutes.
It was the game. It was great. It was brilliant. But she posted this, right? Zara's posted this and put, "Come on, England." She's in a pub, as you can see. Look, she's in a pub, background pub, and she's wearing an England shirt, eating fish and chips. The chips look fucking massive, by the way. Doesn't that look good? She's having a Coke. She's got an England shirt on. Yeah, somewhere in Coventry South, presumably, in their constituency. But anyway, You can probably see actually that I've commented just below this, because, and I'll read my comment now, as you can see it on the screen here, and that is quite simply that the racist comments that she's received from this, from a bunch of people, are properly disgusting. Like, it was really bad to see some of it. I felt a bit nauseous actually. Like, a lot of it are basically leveling abuse at her, because they're saying this photo is staged, you're not English, you don't support England, that sort of thing. Really bad stuff going on. And I made the point that, Brits who are BAME are abused if they support their country, and then they're abused when they don't. And they literally can't win. I don't know what people want, really, other than an excuse to just be assholes, which is what it looks like. And for anybody watching this who has any doubt whatsoever, Zara was born in Birmingham. It's just as much her country as it is anyone else's, and that's my stance on that. But anyway, what if we can see this actually? You might be able to see it down here. I know it's really blurry. I know, but it's this one. It's this one here, my favourite one. Red squirrel. So when I posed the question, what do people want here? Well, Red Squirrel's got an answer to my question. Good old Red Squirrel. Love a bit of Red Squirrel. I love anonymous people on Twitter. Yeah.
You know who that is?
Anonymous people. I just think if you're and have some sort of anonymous name, whatever that's on there, you've only come to abuse the troll, right? That's what you're doing on social media. Otherwise, show your face so I can see who you are, tie you to your LinkedIn profile, and let your employer know. I'm only joking. But that's what you're doing, right? That's what you're doing. Anyway, Red Squirrel says, our country back. And when I said, what do people want? What is it that people want? Our country back and an end to the ongoing ethnic replacement we see not just here, but in every white country. I mean, that is a loaded sentence, isn't it? He wants, I presume it's a he, writes like a he, our country back.
Writes like a he.
There's a big. It does write like a he. You can always tell normally tell a.
You're identifying an ex-user who identifies as a red squirrel. You're assigning them a gender.
Yeah, I don't care.
You're a man.
I don't care. You're a man. Yeah, I don't think there are many women who are talking about having our country. Yeah. No, they can't. Our country, that's another episode. No, they can't. Our country back and an end to the ongoing ethnic replacement we see here, not just here, but in every white country. So I said, Zara was born in Birmingham. It's just as much her country as anyone else's. Ethnic replacement. At which point in history do you draw the line here exactly? What is an ethnic English person? That was my question to Red Squirrel. I'm being quite nice, I think, to Red Squirrel. Here, this is only this morning as well that this was going on. So Red Squirrel comes back to me. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning.
So it's an early start to the racism.
All night. That had been going through the night. Yeah, they had an all-nighter. I had a lock-in on the racist in. Yeah, they did. Red Squirrel's answer to this is, considering we've had more immigration in the last 20 years than the previous 2,000, and the country was almost entirely Anglo-Celtic for most of that time, let's say around those lines. And I've had enough.
You're not going to let that lie, are you?
No, I've had enough at this point. I've just put, then, sir, you are a fool who's in desperate need of education. Red Squirrel, if you're watching this, I stand by that comment, mate. You are a fool, and you do need some education, because everything that you've just said is demonstrably false, is nonsense. So
how can you prove that's false?
I'm gonna that's what we're gonna do now, right? So considering we've had more immigration in the last 20 years than the previous 2,000, let's block that off. That's one claim. The country was almost entirely Anglo-Celtic.
Anglo-Celtic?
What the fuck does that mean? Anglo-Celtic for most of that time. Okay, there's two real claims in there.
The Celts were up north.
Well, not all of them. Not all of them. So you had Celts in sort of Cornwall area as well.
Yeah. How did they get down there?
Have you ever wondered why you've got Plymouth Argyll, and Argyll is an area of Scotland? Think about it, man.
History bomb. You're going to have to Google that stuff now. That's really cool.
Yeah. People of Cornwall, or Canal, as they like to call themselves, have their own language. Actually, during and we'll talk about this in a moment. a lot of the original Brits, after the sort of Saxon invasions, they moved sort of west into Wales and Cornwall. So Cornwall, Wales, and Scotland, the original Brits and the Celtic people were there, basically. So no, they are absolutely Celtic, those people. But anyway, two real bold claims in Red Squirrel's absolute word salad and verbal diarrhea here, which is that we've had more immigration in the last 20 years than the previous 2,000 years. And the country was almost entirely Anglo-Celtic for most of that time. Do you know what? I'm going to get rid of that at the moment because I don't like seeing Red Squirrel's absolute bullshit anymore, really. What I want to go back to is that screen, first of all. But I thought, you know what? Red Squirrel, just for you, Red Squirrel. Tune in tonight, Red Squirrel. I thought, I didn't say. So tune in tonight, Red Squirrel, because I'm going to give you a brief history of the British Isles based on this idea of we've had more immigration in the last 20 years than the previous 2,000, and the country was almost entirely Anglo-Celtic.
Right. I know you're going to go through it, but
that's right.
When did they really start collecting these statistics?
That is a bloody good question. We can write that. We know that. We know the answer to that. We do.
I don't think it's been the last 2,000 years. I can't see they've had some great historical discoveries where they've actually counted how many people have come over.
Not really. There wasn't so much of a census in that ilk. We actually talk about the first ever census in a minute, actually. Ooh. But
hotly anticipated by the audience.
In less than 5 minutes, and that is a big challenge for me on any topic. In less than 5 minutes, I'm going to give us a potted overview of the British Isles and the people of the British Isles, just for Red Squirrel, just for him. I'm going to say him. I'm going to be brave on that. And we're going to start. We're going to start. Well, do you know what? It reminded me. The 5 minute clock hasn't started yet, by the way, but it reminded me of a sketch by Stuart Lee. You know Stuart Lee, the comedian?
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. If you've not seen this sketch, Google it, YouTube it, whatever. It's the Paul Nuttall UKIP sketch. And it's just so funny that he did this in response to UKIP. And we've been talking about reform, which is UKIP version 3, isn't it? Reform. And it's just, it's very much related. We're still talking about this 20 years later. But he does a great sketch where he goes back about, even to the point of invertebrates coming out of the sea and onto land. Our land, get off our land, get back in the sea, you fishy twats. All that sort of thing. Which is it's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Just really highlighting the ridiculousness of these sorts of arguments. But let's stick with me, guys. Stick with me now, because I'm going to give you a brief history of the British Isles and the people of the British Isles. And we have to wind the clock back 900,000 years. 900,000 years. Nearly a million years, man. 900,000 years. I say nearly a million years. 100,000 years away from a million, but closer to a million, right? Because you know what?
Round
all
it
seriousness. All seriousness.
It's 5 minutes starting now.
Yeah, right now. 900,000 years ago. I'm just watched the clock. 34 minutes in. I've got to finish by 39. 900,000 years ago, we've got evidence of the first humans on the British Isles. Genuinely. And we've got flint tools and things like that over in Norfolk. This is when England was actually part of the Western European Peninsula. It wasn't even an island at this point, right? So 900,000 years ago, got evidence of the first humans. We know that hominoids visited England between ice ages, and the oldest human remains that we have are about 500,000 years old in the UK. We know that Neanderthals visited England, Britain, 300 to 35,000 years ago. So a long period of time that Neanderthals were visiting here. They were migrating here. They did not settle. They were going back and forth between ice ages, different continental shifts, all of that sort of stuff. We had migratory species of different types of humans migrating and coming to and from Britain, first of all. Right? Okay. Right. But to be fair to Red Squirrel, he did say the last 2,000 years. He didn't say the last million years. So we can't really count that. However, right? We wind the clock on a little bit. We've got hunter-gatherers between 9,500 BC and 4,000 BC. We've got the first farmers appearing in the British Isles. 4000 BC, we've got the era of what we call sacred landscapes around 3500 to 2300 BC. That's when Stonehenge and Woodhenge and places like that were being erected by Druids. That's 3500 BC. So 5,000 years ago. It's astonishing, isn't it?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, unbelievable. And that's all of that is prehistory. This is before we get to the Stone Age. This is the Stone Age. This is before we get to the Bronze Age, I should say, which is around 2,300 BC to 800 BC. And along came the Beaker people. Now, this is an interesting place to pause, and I know that it's actually before the 2,000 years that Red Squirrel says, but a very interesting place to pause is the Beaker people. The Beaker people were Spanish. They were from Iberian Peninsula, and they migrated to Britain at that time. The Beaker people were called Beaker people because what they did for us is teach us how to use fucking cups. They brought beakers along and said, look, you can hold water in a beaker. And we're like, oh, great. We no longer have to drink from the river, cupping our hands like animals. Isn't that a fantastic thing?
Wow.
That's the Beaker people. In the Bronze Age, you've got lots of burials. So the Beaker people were normally buried in sort of the mounds, and they were buried with their beakers. This is why we know they're the Beaker people, right? They've actually buried with their beakers and clutching a little flask and shit, whatever, right? So that's the Beaker people, and they're Spanish. They are Spanish. They've come from Spain. They come from Iberian Peninsula, and all of this is before the Iron Age, which is around 800 to 50 BC, where there's again lots of migration. And we're building forts and all that sort of stuff. But, excuse me, to be fair to Red Squirrel, he did say the last 2,000 years. So everything I've just said, we have to discount on Red Squirrel's point. But just to let you know, people have been moving about in the British Isles for about 1 million years. Anyway, I think we can kind of include this now. The Romans.
1 minute 22 seconds, by the way, left.
I'm never going to get through 2,000 years in that time. It's not happening.
Go on, man.
Right, I should have said 10 minutes. I should have said 10. We're getting on now to the Romans. In AD 43 and...
What have the Romans ever done for us?
Sorry. Yeah, what have the Romans ever done for us? AD 43 to about AD 410 was the Roman era. But however, just before, I think it was about 53 BC, something like that, maybe a bit later. Caesar came to Britain. 2 different missions, actually. Caesar came to Britain. He basically came on not to conquer the place, but to come and have a sniff about, really. Let's have a little look about that Britain place. I've heard about that. Came up here, made some friends with some of the Druids, some of the British tribes. Namely the ones sort of at the bottom of the British Isles and the Iceni tribe, those sorts of things. It's actually the Catavaluni, which is where we're from, Paul, in our central part of England.
Oh, okay.
Our British tribe, we would have been Catavalunis.
We are loonies. That makes sense.
Yeah, Catavaluni. They because we had some... we had some trade going on with Romans at that time, and they were very anti-Roman, the Catavalunians. They were like, no way.
They sound peaceful. Everything I've learned about history was that the Romans weren't that nice when they came over. Are you saying that actually they were pretty all right?
No, so there's 2 different... So we've got to distinguish between when the Romans first came, which is BC, which is Caesar, and then for about 100 years, they didn't come back. And then they came back in AD 43, and then it was not peaceful when they came back. They came back with the vengeance. So they actually came about 100. Julius Caesar came BC, about 50 BC, something like that. I forget the actual date. He came twice, a few years apart. Have a little bit of a sniff about, made some friends, wanted to trade, set up trade routes, all of that sort of stuff. Basically a little bit of a recce, right, before anything happens. About 100 years had passed. They're obviously doing good trade with the tribes, the British tribes, that sort of thing. The Catavallunis were like, no, we don't really like the Romans, and we don't like most of our neighbours either, so we're going to kick off. So they kicked off, and it was all sort of chaos for a minute. And then basically, obviously planned for quite a long time, a great Roman army arrived on our doorstep, AD 43. And that's where you get the Boudica stuff. Boadicea, sometimes called Boadicea, Boudica, who was queen of the Iceni tribe, a tribe from northern parts of Norfolk, so East Anglia, around there, sort of King's Lynn, Cromer area, around that side. Romans did some terrible stuff to her family. She was pretty pissed off about this, actually. And went on a mad rampage. She sacked London, or Londinium as it was called, Verulamium, I always forget how to pronounce that, St Albans, Camalodunum, which is Colchester, which was the capital at the time, and basically she burnt these places to the ground. These are Roman places. This is around AD 60, so they'd only been here about 17, 18 years at this point. But she's like, she's like, no, I ain't having this. And she kicked off and took her mad druids with her, kicking off left, right, and centre. Really interestingly, there are two possible places where Boudica met her demise, and they are both near Milton Keynes and Northampton. They're along the A5, along the Watling Street. From the records at the time, or the ecclesiastical, or Bede's ecclesiastical history of the British Isles, it's very likely that they're somewhere around Buckinghamshire, Northamptonshire, along the Watling Street, where she met the Romans, because she was marching through to Lactodorum, which is Towcester, the town of Towcester. She was marching through there, probably about to burn Towcester to the ground. Basically, she was going to burn every single Roman
modus operandi.
She was kicking off, man. But anyway, all of that's done. Wind on a little bit. AD 130, Hadrian's Wall. Did you know there was a second wall? Antonine Wall.
No,
a lot of people don't know that. Yeah, there was two walls. There was Hadrian's Wall, which was completed around AD 130. The Antonine Wall, which is a little bit further apart, that was abandoned about 30 years later. It was never completed. Basically, what we're looking at this moment in time, though, is a massive Romanization of all of England, multicultural society under Roman law. This is when we're first starting to write things down as well. And a lot of the text that we've got from this period, really, well, we haven't really got a lot of text from this period, is what I should say, but a lot of text that was written hundreds of years later about this period, is what I should say, talks about Britain being full of druids, tree-worshipping pagans who were sacrificing goats in the forest, that sort of thing. The Celts, the Brits, right? They're the British people, right? So I think I'm well in the 2,000 years now that Red Squirrel is talking about. There is a shitload of Romans that have just come over. And they're not just Roman. They're not just Roman, because one of the things about the Roman Empire is that it was multicultural. It spanned so far. It was multicultural.
I think they welcomed any culture into their society, didn't they?
Yes, mate. Exactly that.
Welcome. Was it welcome though?
What they did, the Romans, they were very good at doing.
Were they? Or were they the ye old America? They brought freedom to many different people.
They were much cleverer than that. They were much cleverer. They were like, I don't care what gods you want to look at. We're going to bring our gods with us, and we're gonna recommend our gods. But if you still want to worship Woden and Great Piku, the tree god, or whatever, you do that. That's cool, as long as you pay me my taxes. Right, so I don't care what you're doing, as long as you live by Roman law. As long as you live by Roman law, we're gonna steal all your stuff. Right? You can think what you like. You can believe in what you like. You can speak whatever language you like within reason, although actually the real important people in your society are going to speak Latin. If you want to keep speaking pig, you carry on speaking pig, whatever, right? So they were very good at that. And the reason they did that is because it's much easier to conquer a people if you adopt their ceremonies and their ways of life into yours, rather than forcing yours onto theirs. It's so much easier to do that, and the Romans knew that, and they were really good at it. So they were like, no, we're gonna merge. It's a bit like the Borg from Star Trek. Your distinctiveness will be added to the collective. Do you know what I mean? That's
clutching the straws there. The board kind of changed you from what you were into what they are, and you became one of them.
The Romans did. You are now a Roman. You're no longer a Brit. You're a Roman. You're gonna.
Yeah, but you could, like you said, you could talk how you wanted. You could worship what you wanted. The board didn't have none of that.
No, true. That's fair comment. But
we're going to debate this. We're going to debate it properly. But
no, you're
back
right.
on topic.
The point being that the Romans had a very multicultural, very religious, tolerant society. They were very good at conquering different places with as minimal force as possible, and very good at actually getting that adoption of the Roman way of life done really quickly. They had a good process and a good standard operating procedure for implementation of Roman.
You're saying they're different to Genghis Khan then? You think they're
massively different?
Cheese? Do you think the Romans were more kind and caring? Come to us.
The Romans were not barbarians of the time. They were the opposite. They were the civilized. Most of the people, most of the foot soldiers, probably thought, in a bit like America do, like, no, we're bringing you civilization. We're bringing you. We're the good guys, man. Look, we're going to bring you central heating. We're going to build you some roads. Everything's going to be better. We're going to build you nice villas and shit. Look at this nice pottery and that. And we've got wine and lovely silks and clothes. And everything's going to be better if you just join us, man. It's great. So, they absolutely thought they were the good guys. They were not barbarians at all. They were the civilized people of the world at that time. However, done through a very brutal way, and some insane leaders at that time. But anyway, let's wind the clock on. For Red Squirrel's benefit, if nothing else. In between AD 360 and about 410, 411, the Romans abandoned England. And it was quite abrupt. It happened quite quickly over the span of a few decades, which is quite abrupt, really, for a whole civilization, a whole culture, just to exit the country. And quite simply, what had happened.
But there were other problems. I don't know if it's the same time, but there were problems back at home, weren't they?
Exactly that. They basically said, so what was happening was they were taking more and more money from us because they needed more to invest in armies and defenses against their wars in different lands. The British Isles were getting attacked. The Romans in the British Isles were getting attacked by the Celts and the Picts, Scottish people, basically. And almost certainly the very first remnants of Germanic people were starting to attack on the eastern coasts. And so they were like, Rome, you need to help us, man. We need more military. We need, we can't fight all these fronts. And Rome basically said, do you know what, mate? You're actually on your own. And like, you're really on your own. Like, we are cutting all support. We can't, because you got to think the British Empire, or the British Isles, I should say, was right on the extremities. It was like a real suburb of the Roman Empire. It's going to be one of the first things that you ditch, right? Good farming, man, good soil and all that sort of stuff. But you got problems closer at home, closer to your nebulous, your nucleus, right? You're gonna defend Rome over London at that point.
Yeah.
Of course you are. All right, that makes perfect sense. So they cut us off, basically. You're on your own. And there's this real weird period now between sort of 400 AD and 500 AD. There's like 100 years of sort of nothingness where it becomes more lawless. The civilization and the society and the rules and everything that the Romans imposed sort of fettered away. And what you actually ended up with was a bit of a bandit land. It became lawless. It was sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Almost like the Wild West sort of thing. It was almost sort of like,
it's just probably a fight for power, because if you have this control, if you have these people come in and say, right, we're your conquerors, even though they didn't say it, they were a bit subtle about it. They suppress the population, don't they? They suppress people that are going to fight back. They suppress protesters, freedom fighters, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And then when their power's gone, they're like, oh, we do what we want now.
So, you're absolutely right. And what happens is a sense of devolution. So you got to think at that time, the British Isles was unified under a Roman Empire. Actually, there's no, even though I'm defending the Roman Empire, there's unity because everyone is in the Roman Empire. Most people are. Most places are. Once that breaks out, like you say, you've got different people vying for power. You're broken up into little local kingdoms or little feudal system type of thing going on, which just makes the place rife for another invasion. Makes it very easy because you're not battling one people, you're not battling one land. You're fighting pockets, and that's exactly what happened. Because by 500 AD,
we're getting close to the modern era. Exciting AD. Stuff. This sort of stuff. I'm surprised they don't put it on national television.
By 500 AD, we have pagan Germanic speakers settled in England. 3 different sort of tribes of Germanic people. We have the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes, who all within a couple of hundred years are affectionately known as Anglo-Saxons. But when they first came over, they were pagans. They worshipped exactly the same gods as the Vikings. Exactly the same. The Norse gods. Instead of Odin, you had Woden. They were exactly the same. Exactly the same gods. The Northern European, Germanic, Scandinavian, pagan.
Why is that then? Is that because they were so close to each other? Is that because the Norsemen went that way?
They were just slightly altered within language, but it was the same pagan.
So maybe Odin does exist.
Maybe it does, but in the same way that people say that God and Allah are the same thing, right? But if we go back, and I don't know the history of European people that much, but they're probably a common ancestors with the Germanic people and the Viking people. If you go back a few hundred thousand years or whatever, so it's no surprise that you've got a religion that's what the religion is. But
the main question is, we're at 500 AD.
Mm-hmm.
There's about 1,800 years to go. What happens? This is what I want to know now.
I'm coming, man. I'm getting there. So, just for Red Squirrel's benefit, we've had...
He's still watching.
Tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of not just Roman people, but you got to think like the Roman Empire was a bit like the EU. Like, you could travel anywhere. Do you know what I mean? You could have French people, German, Spanish people, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Turkish people, whatever. Do you know what I mean? So we had lots and lots of immigration during the Roman period. We definitely did, right, without a doubt. And this isn't even counting the Beaker people and all the other people that have migrated hundreds and thousands of years before that. And then we've got tens of thousands of people coming over from Germany, Anglo-Saxons, right? Absolutely loads of people coming over. And when they come, they, like I say, they've got these independent kingdoms. But it's the Anglo-Saxons, and this is an interesting point for us. It's the Anglo-Saxons, really, that give us the first idea of England. That's where England comes from. The first idea of England and Britain, really. One of the earliest Anglo-Saxon sort of kings, if you like, was Redwald. Redwald, who... Have you ever been to Sutton Hoo? You ever heard of Sutton Hoo?
I've not been there.
In Suffolk. Really interesting place, man. You take the kids. Really interesting place. Right. But there's basically a big longboat burial. So there was a king, a Saxon.
I think I've
king.
seen that. I've seen that sort of thing on telly.
Yeah, and he had a big. You'll recognise the mask that he has, but we're finding loads of gold. This guy was loaded. He was minted, and again, according to Bede's Ecclesiastical History of the People of the British Isles, which is where a lot of our history comes from around this era, because this is the Dark Ages that we're in now. Actually, King Redwald was the first person to style himself as Bretwalda. And Bretwalda can be translated, there's dispute around this, but it can be translated as Brit wielder, as in the person who's wielding Britain. So King Redwald could be the first person to style himself as King of Britain. Isn't that interesting? Redwald. He was a Saxon. So
they would have called the land something different before that, wouldn't they? Just maybe they would have called it anything.
Well, it was the Romans that called it Britain.
Yeah, but if you go back far enough, it would have just been some land. They wouldn't have called it a country.
They'd have called it something else. No, you just have local pockets of kingdoms. Completely. Interestingly, though, by 600 AD, all of the Saxon rulers that have come over.
History speeded up now.
No, we were going faster. By 600 AD, and we go really fast in a minute, mate. Don't worry.
And to be honest, one of the things that we can recommend for this episode is how to get people to sleep. It could be one of those apps that people put on, and it slowly counts them down until they drift off. They go, I got to 600 AD last night.
It's going to get better. It's going to get better, right? 600 AD. All of these Saxons now, they're talking a version of English, an old English now, and they're all converted to Irish or Roman missionaries. And there's an idea of an English church here that's being formed because the Roman religions, or Christianity, and basically is still there from Irish connections, French connections, and it's still there. By 600 AD, we have got basically a bunch of Christians who are speaking old sort of Saxon English by that time. And then let's wind on 190 years, 790, 190 years of relative peace. And then, Red Squirrel, we get another invasion. This time,
another one
from the Vikings. 790 was the attack on Lindisfarne. Lots and lots of raids. For anyone who doesn't know this, Lindisfarne is seen as the beginning of the Viking era. The first raid on the British Isles that we know about. I don't actually think it was the first, but the first recorded one is Lindisfarne. And there's a monastery there that Vikings have come along and they've sacked, they've hammered the place. By 865, there's been endless raids. 865, the Great Heathen Army arrives. And it was actually King Alfred of Wessex who defeated the Viking army. And actually, I can't remember who it was now. My brain's gone numb. But anyway, got them baptized or whatever. So he's actually now christening Vikings and that sort of thing. And then you've got the Danelaw that was created. You know the Danelaw?
Yeah. You've told me about it,
yeah, super fascinating. So there was massive swathes of land carved out within the British Isles for the Danes, the Vikings, to settle on. Because that's what they were saying they wanted. They were saying, we're only raiding you because we like the place. We're just hitting you because we like you. And we're like, all right, great. So basically, the Vikings were basically just saying that we are going to keep smashing you if you don't pay us a lot of protection money, or let us have a place to settle. And we're like, all right, we don't really like you because you keep punching us and kicking us in the balls, but we're going to give you this land over here, which, by the way, is all marshland, and it's not the best farming land, but you can have that land there. It's all the eastern sort of coast of England, and that became the Danelaw. And then, excuse me, Red Squirrel, you've got lots and lots of people migrating from Scandinavia, thousands of people. All within the last 2,000 years. So you got.
I want to know if we're in the last 1,000 years though. Yet are we getting close to the modern era, or
we're super close? Because then within, so King Alfred's grandson was called Athelstan. He's the person that defeated the coalition of the Viking Scots and became ruler of all Britain. Because obviously you got a lot of Vikings that are settling here, but Scandinavia is very similar to this place. It's all separate kingdoms. You got King Harold trying to be king of all Norway, but actually it's still very much separated into different sort of Viking kingdoms as well. So they're not on the same page, even though there's a Danelaw. We're still getting raided by different types of Vikings. You think, oh fucking hell, I can't win here. So the raids carry on or whatever, and then you've got a Viking Scottish alliance basically. And Athelstan broke that, became the very first person, the very first king of all England. Athelstan, the first king of England, really. Alfred wasn't. A lot of people say it was King Alfred. It wasn't. Alfred was king of Wessex. It just so happened that Northumbria and Mercia had pretty much fallen to Vikings. So Wessex is all that was left of England, really, in some senses. So he kind of was the king of all England, I guess. But Athelstan is very much the first king of all England, very much so. He's the first king of England, really. And then we're going to wind time on. We're really going to speed up now. Because then, believe it or not, Red Squirrel, 1066... I'm sure you've heard of 1066 Red Squirrel. It's probably the type of thing you've got tattooed on your belly where you rest your Stella Artois, right? Which is not an English beer, by the way. Right? You can imagine it, can't you? 1066, right? William the Conqueror arrives on our shores.
He doesn't sound nice.
And he doesn't sound nice. 1066, Battle of Hastings, all of that jazz. We've got a bunch of Normans on our doorstep now. A bunch of French dudes turning up. Albeit, these French dudes, there's a reason they're called Normans, Norman being a derivative of Northmen. They were actually Vikings as well. They hail from Vikings, man. So we've got Vikings, French Vikings now. Imagine that. Oh, man. It was bad enough when we had the sort of Danish-speaking Vikings, and now we've got French-speaking Vikings at our door. Bloody hell. Whatever. So then that leads us right into the medieval period. So we're out of the Dark Ages. Now, 1066.
It's like I'm going down Toboggan Ride, and it started off slowly when you're just running off the first bit. But now you get around the corners, swinging really quick.
Mate, you wait till now. We're going to fly now. Okay. 1066 to 1485 is the medieval period. I'm talking William, Duke of Normandy. I'm talking the line of French/Viking kings. I'm talking the Doomsday Book, which is the first census. I'm talking the Magna Carta, which was a treaty given to King John. He was made to sign it by his nobles in 1215. I'm talking the different Edward kings.
In America.
Exactly that. Attack and defeat by Scots. No, it's not. I'm talking religious monasteries. I'm talking Henry V in Agincourt, defeat of the French because we had a longbow and they didn't. I'm talking ruling half of France. I'm talking the War of the Roses. That's the medieval period. Loads and loads of immigration going on in this period of time. We ruled half of France. French people were coming over, for crying out loud, all of which, Red Squirrel, happened in the last 2,000 years. Now, this is where we really get fast. Buckle in, Paul Davis, because I'm going to give you the Tudor period between 1485 and 1603. I'm going to give you the Stuart period between 1603 and 1714. The Georgians, 1714 to 1837. The Victorians, 1837 to 1901, leading us right into 20th century and the new Elizabethan era, capping it all off with the reason that they're called Windsor is because their original surname is Mountbatten and they are German, not English. The royal family are very much German and Greek. They're not English. Whatever English means, as you can tell from our history, probably the only actual beings that can call themselves English are squirrels and foxes, because they're the ones that have been here from day dot when it was all just one big forest. Everyone else that has ever stepped foot on this island is in one way or another an immigrant. Simple as that, Red Squirrel. I'll rest my case.
Wow. That 5 minutes felt a lot longer than 5 minutes. Now, I know my time has stopped at that certain point.
It's actually 25 minutes, but whatever, man.
And I can tell you, audience, having sort of dealt with Simon and sort of been around him, that's how things can feel with him when you're having a conversation. That 5 minute conversation just goes on and on and on.
I actually really tried my best to be fast then. That's what I really did. Yeah.
Give him the microphone in the limelight and that's it.
Yeah. My point is, I'm not. Go on. Tell me why I'm not.
No, I can understand. That 25-minute history. Red Squirrel is now been put in this place. He will no longer give such comments on X, formerly known as Twitter, as everyone has to bloody say, because no one knows that X was Twitter. And you're right. What immigration's been going on forever.
It has. That's the point.
Have we ever wanted it? I don't think we've ever wanted it. No.
Is that relevant? Not sure.
Brothers have just rocked up and gone, hello, we've got a big army. We're going to take you over. Vikings have gone and found a monastery and gone, these guys don't fight back. Brilliant. We'll just take their stuff.
Reminds me of a really good episode of Doctor Who. I think it's a Matt Smith one where they're in some space hotel or something. And there's a creature, I think he's actually played by... who's the guy from Little Britain, the tall guy?
Oh, yeah.
David Walliams. He's played by David. This creature, an alien creature played by David Walliams. And his species just get conquered all the time. So they've sort of evolved into being very passive and very welcoming. So they even roll out carpets for invading species. Welcome. Here, have some cheese. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Very much like that. But the point being, and this is the point, I just don't like this idea that we can selectively draw a line at some point in history where we think actually that's English right there. And on that, when I ran through the sort of right from the Tudor period going right onto the new Elizabethan era, the amount of immigration that's going on there, we're talking about the development of the Navy. We're talking about Caribbean. We're talking about French, the Spanish Armada. We're talking about, I've not even mentioned the Crusades, the slave trade. Not mentioned the Crusades. I've not mentioned the British Empire. Not mentioned India.
Was there immigration during the Crusades?
Africa. I reckon we would have brought some slaves back with us. I reckon we might have even bred with a few people along the way. Who knows? Who knows? The point being,
was it mutual enjoyment of that?
Probably not, because they had God on their side. So it's fair season, isn't it?
God wills it.
The point being, just this idea that we're all very we're not fucking trees. You know what I mean? I'm not a tree. I'm not rooted to this land. We are migratory species, and this idea that it's our country and I want it back, and a brown person is not white enough for me, and they're ruining my culture. What is your culture exactly, mate? Other than 1066 on your belly where you balance your Ken of Stella Artois.
So, and this is one of the great things about you talking for so long. You eventually get you get time to think and ponder it and reflect on what you're saying. And so is it a case of, you're right, there's nothing wrong with people coming into the country. Eventually we may go to other countries. I may pop over to America, immigrant over there. But is it losing the identity of what that country is? So to me, it's English speaking. It is Catholic, Christian as our religion, if you believe in that, or atheist if you don't, or practicing multiple gods, whatever. I suppose that's fine as well. Is it? I don't know what you go beyond that. The food, I guess, the food, fish and chips, that sort of thing. Indian, although we wouldn't have that if we didn't have migration. So go figure on that one.
Yeah.
But that sort of thing, are those the things? I suppose values as well. Values as a country. We believe in free speech, equal opportunity. Everyone has the same sort of rights. Are those the things that we need our government and our people to defend, so that doesn't change? You take an extreme one, and I don't know another sort of religious sort of thing to pick on, but the one that I hear a lot about is Sharia law. That sort of really extreme sort of laws they have over, I guess, in Afghanistan, as it is now, where that sort of stuff doesn't fly here. That's not the way we are. You can't come here and start killing people just because they married or they met someone out of wedlock or whatever you believe in. There's certain things that define who we are and what our country is, and that's what we need to stand by and protect, so that we protect who we are. We protect England. And as long as people coming into this country agree to abide by it, agree to merge with us, agree to learn the English language, because that's what we speak, you know what? That's fair game. Do it. Brilliant. Welcome.
So I think there's a lot of things in that. Well, let's try and deal with them in reverse order. English is the lingua franca, right? It used to be Latin. Now it's English. 86% of the internet is written in English. It is lingua franca, means the language of money. English is the lingua franca. It is the most valuable language on earth. It is. It just is, right? Because of how widespread it is, and like I said, 86% of the internet is written in English, for crying out loud. So to be honest, they probably do speak English. Most people speak English, when they come here. The other thing I'd say as well is everything that you've just mentioned there, I don't think is English. I don't think it's English at all.
Ooh.
I don't think it's anything to do with England. I think it is quintessentially civilized, common sense. These things. Well, hear me out, right?
It's tricky, because
it is. But I don't think that these things define England at all. Not at all. And in fact, I believe that the division of land into countries is something that holds the human species back. that massively holds us back. Massive. And when you talked about religion, the only way to get around that is just abolish all religions, right? It's fucking nonsense. Like, it just don't believe in. It's just daft. It's really daft. So, and that's another episode, isn't it? Coming up. But that's just bizarre, right? Totally bizarre. So I don't think anything that we've talked about there is about protecting England. I really don't think it is. This idea that we need to protect our culture. You think Canadians think like that. Australians think like that. Americans on the whole think like that. There are probably lots of countries, Sweden, Germany, all these countries, everything we've just said there.
You're not wrong.
It's not English. It's just common sense. It's civilized. It's countries.
So you can't say common sense because certain countries don't think like that. And if you're saying that, then you're saying they haven't got any common sense.
Well, I'm quite happy to say that. I'm quite happy to say lots of countries haven't got common sense. But I think perhaps those that we would consider to be further along some sort of civilized scale, then, if you like. And I mean that. Absolutely do. I mean, there's massive differences between, how are we going to get to, we've just gone through, and whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not, like we have just gone through a complete change of government through just a bunch of people going down to their local village hall and putting a slip of paper in a box. No guns were fired. No people were killed. We've just had a change of government, a change of leadership, total change, a whole change in this country. And not a single bullet was fired. Not a single person was hurt, really. There's probably, there's obviously little bouts of violence, but you get the point. There's no dictator with a military coup going on. Do you know what I mean? So... yeah, that's barbarianism. That is, as far as I'm concerned. And what you're talking about there is actually civilized society. Yeah. So should we defend the values of civilized society? Fuck yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We should defend that our leaders can be corrupt. We should defend that our leaders have their own sort of side bets and who's gonna get elected or when the election is gonna start. We should defend big companies basically just taking all our money. And just depriving us of anything. Well, we should defend all that 100%.
I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm saying it's further along the civilized scale. I'm not saying it's completely there. I mean, we still got this ridiculous idea of MPs having to swear to a god that they're gonna do their job.
They don't. I saw the other day. They don't. It's two things.
Yes, if you're secular, you don't. But you have
to. It's your favourite one, Corbyn. Yeah, Corbyn did it.
Yes, but you have to. You have to say you're going to serve King Charles III, though, don't you? Yeah. God. No, for that. Whatever. Bit of a Republican, I reckon. The point being that we're not perfect, but we're a lot better than some of the things that we're scared of, that we think are invading the country and are going to regress us. That's fine. We can defend freedom, civilization, security, society, and progressiveness. We should defend those things with all of the people in the world that feel the same way as us. Those things are not English. They're not related. We're just tying them together in our mind. Actually, those things would still exist if England didn't exist. It's not English. It's just the development of the human civilization. Do you see what I mean? In my head. And actually, one of the things that we desperately will need to do at some point in our future is abandon the ideas of countries. Abandon it.
So you'd be all right with us speaking French?
I'd like to speak French. I wish I did speak French.
The French come over and go, right, you're going to be French now.
No, but it's not going to happen, is it? Because...
got the same values, but you're all going to be French.
No, because there would be no France.
There are prep mongers everywhere.
No.
So baguette stores on every corner.
No. I mean, I'm all right with that as well. French food's great. But what I'm talking about is that I have a dream, boys. I have a dream, man, and the dream is that we all call ourselves Earthlings. I'm an Earthling. If we're going to be an interplanetary species in the future, I want to be an Earthling. I don't want to be an English person. I don't want to be a Scots person. I want to be a British person. I want to be an Earthling. Yeah, fine. There are different, in much the same way as you've got Scousers and you've got Mancunians and you've got Geordies and you've got Londoners and whatever, right? Fine. You can still have those subcultures on the planet of Earth. That's absolutely fine. Culture can be preserved. The division of land through social constructed borders is just fucking bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. And what was it, Elon Musk?
Far ahead though, aren't you?
What was that Elon Musk quote I gave you the other day? The most common error of a smart engineer is to optimize something that should not exist.
Yeah.
The division of land in countries should not exist. It should not exist. It's madness. Absolute madness. It offers no value.
So anyone should be able
whatsoever.
to move into your house?
No, not what I'm saying. Not what I'm saying at all.
Why?
It's not. That's completely not what I'm saying.
That's divided land, isn't it? That's saying this is my land.
That's a different thing, isn't it? I'm saying the division of land into countries makes no sense because all it does is promote the celebration of difference. Think about that. The division of land into countries promotes the celebration of difference, and that difference can lead to conflict. So we need something that promotes the celebration of similarities and of unity. Earthlings, right? What happens, crikey, if Mars attacks? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what I'm talking about, man. And I'm thinking hundreds of years in the future, but that has to occur.
Take about 25 minutes, though, won't it?
35, I think it was. But you have to have that occurring.
I mean, this should be a speech in front of the EU. The next NATO meeting, get
me involved, man. Yeah, I'll have PowerPoint.
We should all identify as Earthlings, and we should stop quarreling over land. My house is an open door. Anyone can just move in.
You see that now you starting to sound like a reform voter, right? That's the kind of thing they would say, right? Because I'm not obviously I don't want people coming into my house. There still should be, I didn't want. If I was a Neanderthal, I wouldn't want someone coming into my cave. It's the same thing, right? It's the absolute same thing. That's not the same as look. I'm going to draw a line on the map, right? And that line on the map, this side, that's our bit. That's your bit. Right, and that's it. And we are better than you because we speak a different language and we have better food and our flags. So
you're all about open borders, basically.
I'm all about no borders, not open
borders.
Zero.
So immigration won't exist.
Exactamundo, and that's how
everyone will just go where they want.
That's how we fix it, man.
Yeah,
that is how we fix it.
That sucks. Probably one of the worst ideas you come up in the last 1 hour and 18 minutes / 3 seconds. Jesus Christ, mate!
Why would that suck?
No. Because then everyone would come here. I mean, may settle down eventually, and then we'd all go somewhere else and all that sort of stuff. But your countries it'd just be a mess of just everything. No, it'd blend together, be rubbish.
But you're thinking about how that can work in today's operation, and it can't. You need a global government. You need global infrastructure. You need global unified solutions, right? Of course you do. You can't have no borders, but then still have British gas. You mean you can't do that?
So gas. That's what you're saying.
Well, by that point, I don't think we'd need gas. But the point being that we've got to think about a whole new way of doing it. I'm talking about throwing everything away and doing it completely differently. You're not going to make this work in today's operation with today's processes. It won't work. Of course it won't. Yeah. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying, man, and you know this better, I'm talking Star Trek shit. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking Star Trek in the future. No money, no religion, just planet Earth, right? We refer to it as the old USA, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'll be able to teleport there. What do you mean border control? Piss right off. Do you know what I mean? I can live wherever I want because it's on the planet. I can live.
Lights out, man. Lights out. So carry on.
And this the best way to get our heads around this, right now, is that You can, if you want, right now, you can go and live anywhere in the UK, can't you? No problem.
No.
Yes, you can. You can if you wanted to. Right? You could go and live in Scotland if you wanted to. You can go and live in Liverpool. You go and live in London or Manchester or Cornwall or anything like that.
Amazing. Yeah.
You can, but there is nothing legally stopping in your way. Right? Nothing at all. Just expand that across every single landmass of the globe. Because it's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. Like, actually, there's a single world sort of government, there's single world controls. Actually, we're talking about planetary populations rather than, country populations. We're talking about planetary solutions and planetary infrastructure. Actually, no problem. I want to move to Sydney. Great. No worries still, man. Do it. You know what I mean? But it's the same. It would be the same as me moving to Sunderland. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. In today's world. So that's how we get our head around why, that sounds crazy. Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. As soon as you remove the borders, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. In fact, that's what we've got to do. Because
you heard it here first.
And I'll tell you why it's such a good idea. Because why do people want to come to Britain? Why? Why do immigrants want to come to Britain?
Because it's nicer than what they've got, I guess.
That's in a nutshell, right? And I couldn't have said it better. So why don't we make the whole world nicer than what they've got? Why don't we do that? And that's how you end immigration right there. Boom, done. Vote for me, by the way, in 2029. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to run in 29. It's just fucking obvious, isn't it?
Are you running as interplanetary leader? Or supreme leader? Is that what you're going for?
Yeah. Supreme. That's such a good idea. Yeah, El Presidente, I think. Something like that. Yeah.
Nice.
But that's it. That's how you get rid of immigration, isn't it? You make immigration just a nonsensical thing. You make it impossible.
Got it.
Yeah. You make the whole world better. And this is where you start to think maybe Americans delivering freedom on the back of a cruise missile is a good idea. I'm going to fly my C-17 over your country and drop a payload of freedom on your children's heads. Well, that's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it, man. Because the end justifies the means. Maybe. I'm telling you.
I'm a gas at that. But I think it's a good way to end. It's a good way to end.
It is a good way to end. So,
and everyone, and I know the audience will clearly be able to see how that picture and a red squirrel linked all the way to where we are now.
Yeah. So the point is, you're not racist by wanting to think about sensible ways to control immigration because we're confined within the workings of our operation. Red Squirrel's an idiot who's just had the education that he so desperately needed about immigration in the last 2,000, if not 900,000 years in the British Isles. Third and foremost, the way we actually solve these problems and stop you feeling like you're a racist at any given moment in time is wipe out the concept of borders completely, have no division of land, and immigration will go away because it's impossible to be an immigrant. Full circle, baby. We've done it, mate. We've done it. We smashed it. Hour and 23 minutes. Absolutely nailed it.
That was amazing.
Yeah, I thought so.
I think that's one of your greatest performances.
Thanks,
this was a war race show or some sort of theatrical appearance.
Praise
has been thrown at you. If you're Tom Jones, underwear will be thrown at you. It's one of those moments, one of those defining moments in people's lives. Someone may go into their work tomorrow and go, "Did you know I heard it here first on the TTLG podcast?"
I hope so. If we can make one person's life better, I hope we can do that. I mean, that'll do, won't it? That's all I want. I don't know where to go from this. What are we going to talk about?
It won't go anywhere because basically there's too much power, too much money. Money corrupts all. We have no chance that everyone's going to work together because then people would lose that power.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. We're all going to die in the end anyway, so I'm just going to go and watch telly in a minute.
I don't think we'll be able to do it in like 40 years, are we? I've got about 40 years left on my clock. I ain't going to be able to do that.
No, I'm not even sure I've got that, mate, to be fair. Yeah. I mean, we can write it down on paper or something that lasts longer than paper. We'll write it down. In 100 time
capsule, in stone?
In 100 years' time, people will sit there and be like, hang on a minute. Those guys were futurists. They were 400 years ahead of their time. Like they knew what was happening. They saw the trajectory of human society, and they called it, man. They predicted this shit 400 years ago. Yeah, really good idea. Let's do a time capsule or something. We'll write down, put it in the earth. Somebody will dig it up.
You could leave certain things under the ground in like weird things that make no sense. And when the archaeologists come back to uncover all that, why is that dude holding that in that position?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
That's a great idea, actually. I'd like to be buried like on a random hill somewhere, in full Viking garb. So they'll carbon date me. They'll carbon date me to now. They'll be like, the Viking era didn't end in 1066. Look, he's a Viking. Here's the evidence. And they'll think the Vikings carried on. I'll be like the last Viking. It'd be brilliant. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. Or just clutching your beaker, the last beaker person, with Hola written on you somewhere. Hola, senor, with your beaker.
And you're buried with 1,000 dogs.
If you want.
Yeah. It was God of the dogs.
Yeah. God. Yeah, God, like it. Dude.
Right.
We're going to come back next week.
100%. Always.
We don't know what we're going to talk about next week. Do we know? We're going to work that out in a week. Do we know yet?
It varies between the ability to carry on the ingestion period of a baby into some sort of AI futuristic womb.
That's a good one. Do you want to do that?
It goes from that to checking out on the latest TV show. We'll have a think. I don't think we want to advertise it too soon, but we'll let people know what we're going to cover. It's going to be one of the random thoughts, one of the great things we've seen during our week.
Soon we need to do the poll and actually ask people what is it that you want us to talk about. We'll get that going as well.
One of the biggest things I want to see is a comment coming through of someone saying, either shut up, end this now, or I've got a great idea for another episode. One of those variant things, if you want to put it on the...
Somebody talk to us, man. Let us know that you're out there. Yeah, I know.
Let us know.
Oh, no. 28 views, by the way. I'm just looking at it now. 28 views. Although it's not coming through on my screen. It said 0 the whole time. But when I look on X on this screen, it shows me 28. So I don't know how long people have stuck around for. If you've stuck around, if you're watching this, I'm not sure if anyone's watched this. To be honest,
they got to about like 200 BC. They're like, nah, not tonight.
This is in real time. This is going to take 2,000 years.
Yeah, it's like, I give up now. That is enough.
Kill me now. Yeah, quite possibly. Well, I'm knackered, man. I'm going to go and watch The Boys, I think. I'm going to go and watch The Boys. Yeah. It's good, isn't it? I'm going to go and watch The Boys and chill out for a bit. But, Paul, what an absolute pleasure it is to spend the whole evening with you. You're a delight, my friend.
It was a joy. And I'm looking forward to it next week. And I think we will look to try and bring it down a bit.
Do you reckon?
Give you like a half an hour, 45-minute episode.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, it depends how involved we get with artificially creating babies or whatever madness that you want to talk about next week.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I think if we keep away from the history part, we're good.
One idea I had the other day, and then I'd be keen for anybody watching this to give us any thoughts about this. Keen for your thoughts, Paul, is we play subject tennis. So I have a subject one week, and you have a subject the next week, and we've got to talk about each other's subject each week. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I like
and then
that.
we can get the audience ones coming in and go, right, let's mix it up.
Yeah. So next week, let's do the pod babies or whatever it is you were talking about. And
babies.
Yeah, wherever it is. I can't remember. And then we'll start playing subject tennis. That's a good idea.
Do it.
Yeah. Anyway, gonna love you and leave it, dudes. I've got to go. Got to go and watch The Boys.
If anyone is watching or anyone is going to watch or anyone watches this after the event, thanks a lot.
Yeah, what's wrong with
appreciate
you?
It.
Have you not got anything better to do? Yeah, but we do appreciate it massively. Still on 28, by the way. So I don't know. No idea.
28 harder. I'm just going to say it's 28. This is solid. Makes me feel good.
Yeah, well, that's what it says on Twitter right now. On the X, yeah. Cool beans. All right, dude. Have a good one. Cheers, guys.
In a bit. See you later, guys. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye.